I plan on making $30 million over the next 30 years. I want you to do the same thing, and it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. My net benefit is $29,125,000. So the question for me isn't, should I buy this house in cash? It's, how do I get my money working at 15% absolutely as soon as possible? Hey, what's going on? My name's Hayden Crabtree. I'm the author of this book, Skip the Flip, and today we're gonna be talking about something super important to your wealth, which is interest rates, how interest rates work. And at the end of this video, I put together a little tool for you. I'm gonna show you how understanding the basics of interest rates has helped me, according to simple math, is gonna make me $29 million over the next 30 years. And I wanna give you these exact tools, so I've got a free spreadsheet in the description that we're gonna walk through, and I wanna show you how much money you can make over the course of the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, just understanding the simple math. Okay, so what are interest rates? Interest rates, very simply put, are the cost of money, okay? So how much does money cost? This is really important because money is the biggest product in the world. We use money to buy lunch, we use money to buy our house, we use money to buy our car, to invest in the basic necessities, to traveling on vacations. Money is everything, and understanding the cost of money is really, really important. Interest rates are how much, if we go borrow money from somebody else, how much are we going to have to pay for the right to use their money? Now, on the flip side, an investment, the cost of money is the cost that somebody else pays us for letting them borrow our money. So it's really, really important to understand a financial return, a rate of return, is the inverse of an interest rate. An interest rate is what you pay, and a financial return is what you make, okay? Very important to understand that. I know it sounds basic, but you really have to think about it through that lens. What am I lending my money out, and what am I getting my money in at? So what I've done is I want to share my screen with you guys right now, and I've built what we call as a basic amortization chart. And amortization chart, simply put, it just shows how your money and your loans get paid down, okay? And so as we can go through right here, I've set this up, and you guys can have this absolutely free if you want to click the link in the description. So let's walk through this first. This is the amortization if we were to borrow $100,000 at a 5% interest rate for 360 months. That's important to know. We're expressing this in months. 360 months would be 30 years. So this is like a basic home loan, okay? Now let's look at how this chart is set up. We have from 1 to 360 all the way here at the bottom. So this is each and every month. We're gonna look at the starting balance, how much we owe the bank. We're gonna look at how much the total payment is, which is right here. Then we have the interest paid, and then we have the principal paid, okay? So the interest is the amount of money that is just profit for whomever is lending us the money, right? That is the return they are getting on their money. Principal is essentially the pay down of the loan. So if we have a principal balance of $100,000, that's essentially the same thing as the starting balance. Principal is the reduction of the amount we owe somebody. And then at the end, we have, after we've made that payment, we owe $99,879. And that number right there also happens to be the starting balance of the next payment. And so as you can see here, here's how it goes. Our payment is $536. Our interest on our first payment is $416, and that means our principal is $120.15. Now I want you to notice something. How this is set up is that interest comes before principal. And it always works like that. You always pay your interest before you pay your principal. You pay your interest first, and then whatever is left over out of your payment goes towards your principal. So you'll notice how this is calculated, if you're familiar with spreadsheets, is that we take the starting balance and we multiply it by our interest on a monthly term. And so every time our balance goes down, the amount that we're gonna pay in interest goes down as well. And then the result of that is the amount of principal is gonna go up. And so here we analyze. In the first month, we made a $536 payment. Our interest was $416 and our principal was $120. Now in the next month, our payment is still $536. Our payment always stays the same in these amortization charts, okay? And that's true. If you go take out a home loan, your payment is always gonna be the same, and the split of interest and principal is gonna be different on every single payment. Okay, so now our interest went from $416.67 to $416.17. That's a 50-cent difference is not very much money, but it is a difference. And resulting, our principal goes up by 50 cents as well, 51 cents, we're rounding here. And so our ending balance goes down at a faster speed. It actually goes down by about 50 cents faster than it did in the last payment. And that trend continues on, and it continues on, and it continues on. And so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna grab this, I'm just gonna drag it all the way down, and I've got the calculations in there, and you guys can do this too. Drag it all the way down. I created some totals at the bottom so we can see exactly how much money was paid. So now let's remember here, we borrowed $100,000 at 5% for 360 months, okay? So what we've got, total payments, $193,000. So if we take the $536.82 and we multiply that by 360, that will give us our total payments, $193,000. So we borrowed $100,000 and we paid almost $200,000. And the reason that is because not only did we pay our loan off, we paid interest along with it. Now, our total interest was the amount above the $100,000. It's $93,255.78. And again, our total principal was $100,000. And you can see inside of this last payment here, we still paid $536.82, but we only paid $2.23 of interest, and we paid $534 of principal, and that gives us an end balance of $0. So here in this last payment, we actually paid more than we owed the bank. We owed the bank $534, but we paid them $536. That's because we paid interest on it. That's fun to look at. And so here's how this works is we can see as a total percentage how the total amount that we're gonna pay changes. We're borrowing the same amount. So let's say you go to a lender. One lender gives you, hey Hayden, I'm gonna give you $100,000 at 5%. I go, okay, well that's gonna cost me $93,255 in interest. So now let's take a look. What happens if somebody else wants to give us a 4% loan? Okay, well our payment changes. It went from $536 to $477, and our total interest went from $93,000 to $71,000. So just a 1% interest rate difference saved us $22,000 of total interest paid. We still paid the same amount of principal, but we paid over the course of 30 years, $22,000 less. So that is how the interest rate works. And again, you guys can come in here, you can play with this, you can enter in any amount. You can say, oh, well, I'm buying a house for $300,000, and let's just say you're gonna borrow all of it. You can see your payment, your interest, your breakdown, all of that right here inside of this chart, total payments, total interest paid, total principal paid. You can do that. Now, let's go back to the example of $100,000 at 5%. What if we borrow for 20 years, which a lot of commercial investment loans, investment property loans are 20-year amortizations, okay? So let's take a look at that. The math works the exact same in terms of our payment is our interest gets paid first and our principal gets paid second. And in fact, our interest goes down at the exact same rate in the beginning, but we're paying a higher principal. We're paying this loan off faster. We're paying it off in 20 years instead of paying this loan off over 30 years. So what that means is that our payments are gonna be higher, which causes our principal to be higher. It does not cause our total interest to be higher in the beginning, right? And so if we drag this all the way down as well, we paid a total of $58,000. The reason that is because we had borrowed that money for a less amount of time. The longer you hold on, the more you're going to pay, even at the same interest rate. We still paid the overall same amount of principal, but we paid less interest simply because we did not have that money as long, okay? These are for amortizing loans. If a loan amortizes, it means it gets paid down over time. Amortize is this financial word. In accounting, to amortize means that you can take benefits down. Inside of the finance world here, inside of loans, it's the balance going down. So this is an amortizing loan. Now, we could have an interest-only loan. They're rare, bigger deals. You can get interest-only loans. If you're doing construction, you can generally get interest-only. And sometimes a loan will go from interest only and it will convert over to a amortizing loan. So let's talk about an interest only loan. An interest only loan is very simple. Let's look at the math here. $100,000, 5% interest, and let's say this is a 360-month loan. That's how long we'll borrow it for. That's not an amortizing schedule. That's how long the term of the loan is. And in Skip the Flip, we talk about balloons, when loans are due, how that differs from their amortization schedule. So if you haven't gotten a free copy of that book, you can get it absolutely free. Link in the description, PDF, audiobook, whatever you want. Okay, so now interest only, our principal is always going to be zero because we're not paying any principal. We're only paying interest. That's what interest only means. And so our payment is going to be exactly related to our interest. okay? Our payment is gonna be exactly related to our interest. And so our starting balance never declines because we're never paying off any principal. But let's act like we did this interest-only loan for 30 years, okay? And here's the deal, is that at the end of this loan, we're gonna have to pay the $100,000 off. We don't just get to not pay that off. So we're still gonna end up paying $100,000 of principal. So our total payments were $150,000. Our interest is $150,000. And then our principal has been zero. But here's the thing, at the end of this loan, right, we're gonna have to pay the $100,000 off. So that means our principal is really gonna be $100,000, one too many zeros. And that means our total payments is gonna be all of our interest we paid plus our principal. So this loan at 5% interest only, while our payments are gonna be lower each and every single month, overall, this is gonna cost us a total of $250,000, $150,000 of interest, which if we look at this, is higher than both of these. So interest-only loans are really good whenever you have low cash flow, but they're really bad for you long-term because you're never paying the loan off and you're paying overall more money in the long term. So let's talk about this quick decision. You understand how interest rates work. If you don't, drop me a comment. I'm happy to answer, but you understand how interest rates work. Now, the most common question I get is this: Hayden, I have a loan that I'm paying on, and I have enough cash to pay the loan off. Do I keep the loan and go invest the money, or do I actually just pay off the loan and save the interest money, right? Because a lot of people say, look at this interest I'm paying. I need to avoid paying this $70, $90, $150,000. And so I want to walk you through a quick example. I bought my house and I borrowed $450,000 on the purchase of my house. I could have paid cash for that, but I wanted to go invest that money instead. And so here on this last tab of the spreadsheet, what I built for you guys is essentially a comparison. On the left-hand side here, we have an amortization schedule just like we looked at. And then on the right-hand side, we have a rate of return, okay? And so I wanna walk you through this quick math. I borrowed $450,000 at a 2.85% interest rate for 360 years, okay? Or I'm sorry, months, over 30 years. Standard loan, I got 2.85%. Now, I also wanted to say, hey, I could go invest instead of paying that money into my house. I borrowed that money. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn around, I'm gonna invest that money instead. So I think that I can invest at an annual rate of return of 15% through my real estate. I think I can get higher than that, but really I wouldn't invest in anything less than a 15%. And so for a monthly term, I've got a little calculation here because what we want is we want to make sure that I'm investing at the right speed, right? And so what this shows you is your monthly gain and your annual rate of return. So if you had a home loan for $450,000 and 2% interest, or if you borrowed $700,000 at 3%, or if you borrowed $200,000 at 1%, whatever, you can enter those numbers in over here on the copy that you've made. And then you want to enter that same amount over here. Really, it'll do it for you. If we change this down to 100,000, then it'll change for you, and then we want to enter in our rate of return, okay? So I'm borrowing, again, my house loan was $450,000, and I can invest at a 15% rate of return. So this is gonna show us my monthly payment, which this is right on par, my interest, my principal, and my in balance. And then this is me assuming I went and invested that money at 15%, okay? So this shows my in balance, essentially what my investment has become worth each and every single corresponding month. And so let's avoid this right side here for a second. I'm actually gonna hide it so that we can't look at this, okay? Let's hide these and let's go look at my home loan and how much I'm gonna pay. So my total payments on this is gonna be $669,000. I'm gonna pay $219,000 of interest, almost $220,000 of interest, and I'm gonna pay $450,000 off over the life of this. Now, at the end of that, I'm also gonna have a house that's worth, in 30 years, my house will probably be worth, I bought it for $475,000 and my house will probably be worth $1 million in 30 years. That's everybody's house will be worth $1 million in 30 years. So I'll end up with an asset. I'll end up with $1 million over here. But let's take a look at how my investment did. Okay, so I'm gonna open this up. And my starting balance on 15%, let's look at the end of how much this investment is anticipated worth, growing at 15% over 30 years, okay? Here is my total invested amount, $450,000. At the end of 30 years, growing at a 15% rate of return, I expect to have an in balance of that investment of almost $30 million. $29,795,000 is just a simple math, guys. This isn't hocus pocus. This is just consistently gaining money on an investment. Everybody has this opportunity to do this. Now, my total return is gonna be $29,345,000. That's my investment amount minus my in balance. Again, I had to pay $219,000 of interest, so I wanna take that amount out because that was a cost, but my net benefit is $29,125,000. So the question for me isn't, should I buy this house in cash? It's, how do I get my money working at 15% absolutely as soon as possible? And that's a key for you guys too, is that if you don't pay off, if you keep your money, you need to invest it. You have to invest it. I think real estate is the best way to invest it, and you have to keep it invested, right? This assumes that I leave all of my gains in here. If I'd come through in year 20 and taken out, $10 million, whatever, then I wouldn't end up and my gains would go down. You can see here in the end years, I'm making $300,000 a month if I'm invested at 15% a year. And that's just that's the compound effect, right? That's how Warren Buffett, if you look at the graph of Warren Buffett's wealth, you can see that Warren Buffett wasn't even a billionaire until he was like 50, and his wealth just explodes. And that's the compound effect. And I want the compound effect to work for me. I want it to work for you. And I want you to understand that the compound effect is easier to get massive results in the sooner you start. So if you're a young person, you don't even have to be young. If you're 50 or below, the compound effect is real. Even if you're older, I mean, the compound effect just gets bigger, bigger, bigger the longer it goes on. And so that's how, understanding the basic of interest rates, you can come through, you can plug it in, enter in your data over here, enter in how much you think you can invest at. Listen, the stock market does 10%. Nobody's number over here in cell K3 should be below 10%. Okay, so that's huge for you guys. I want you to understand that you can do this math. It does not have to be complicated. The interest rates, finance, this right here is enough to make you wealthy. You don't need complex formulas and strategies. Understanding the cost of borrowing money and how much you can make whenever you invest money will make you wealthy. That's all you need to do. So if this was helpful for you guys, I want to ask one favor: subscribe to the video and then share the video with a friend. Because again, I plan on making $30 million over the next 30 years. I want you to do the same thing, and it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. Getting rich, getting wealthy is not about being smart. It's about playing the basics and being patient over a long period of time. Hope you guys found this video helpful. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.